How is this all possible?
Keyword selectors. Attack, take out, Bush. So think of it as a Google search, except instead of searching only what people make public, we're also looking at everything they don't. So emails, chats, SMS, whatever.
Yeah, but which people?
The whole kingdom, Snow White.
What was your first impression the very first time you heard Edward Snowden? Heard about him and what he did?
As a citizen, positive. I thought it was anything for transparency. After all, Obama had campaigned on it in 2008. A transparency. We don't want this secret state eavesdropping on all our activities. It's outrageous, unconstitutional, and here was proof. This was evidence, and it was just a tip of the iceberg, frankly. But he brought our attention to at least 5 programs that the NSA were doing. The New York Times in 2005 had issued, but James Risen had discovered something similar, and he was talking about it, but he didn't have this kind of evidence. So it was buried at that time because it was during the Iraq War. We were very patriotic. So here we go. Snowden comes forward 5 years into the Obama administration, and wow, that really hit me. But as a filmmaker, no, I stay away from news. I mean, you can't chase the news, I keep saying, because it changes.
Right.
The winds blow a different way. There might be new witnesses, new evidence coming out. You could get in lawsuits. I don't chase that stuff. Stay away from controversy. Truly. Find the truth. Wait for it. But sometimes it takes years for it to come out.
So at what point from the time that you heard about Snowden, did you decide, I'm making a film?
If you remember Glenn Greenwald, who was very, very great journalist in this matter, he'd written a book, and he had called me about making a movie because he'd been offered, and I gave him advice, but I didn't want to get involved. It was a couple of months later that I got this call from Moscow from the lawyer for Mr. Snowden, who was his defender in Russia, who got him asylum, and who said, "Please come. I'd like you to meet Ed," and so forth and so on. So I went out of curiosity, met him. I was wary, he was wary. I mean, we were both wary of this subject matter. Then I went back 2 more times, and in that course of those few months, I got involved in the realistic story of it.
What struck you the most about him personally when you met him?
His honesty, his sense of principle. He's like a Boy Scout. I mean, he's got a conscience that's, as you see in the movie, that's, he's probably not a guy that I would be friendly with in social life. No, I think he's the kind of man who is very withdrawn.
Yeah.
Very internal, lives on a computer. I don't.
Yeah,
and, he has that kind of, he's a new generation kind of person, too.
You captured that in the movie. You didn't play him as this really, really likable guy.
No.
But at the same time, there's a lot of people that believe in privacy and believe in their principles, but would those people say, I am going to give up my entire life and possibly my freedom?
I mean, that's what makes it especial. I mean, at 29 years old, too.
Yeah.
Remember, my God, I mean, you're giving it all up. And he knew it. He knew it. He said to me at one point, I was a dead man. And after that, what happens in Hong Kong after that, he said, he didn't have an exit plan. He didn't have an escape plan. He was quite willing to say, I'm going to take the blame. I want everyone to know that I alone did this. There was no allies and my colleagues are not responsible. And I have to say, 20,000 people, 30,000 people work at the NSA, estimated. And, none of them have come forward except for 3 other people in the course of how many years? This has been going on since 2001. So,
and you were saying you didn't, you don't like to chase the news. There's all kinds of problems there.
I really don't.
But the story's not really done yet. He's still in exile in Russia.
Well, it is done in a sense because it has reached at least the second act. He is settled there, and I mean, he wants to come back, as you know. He's quite willing to face trial if it was a fair trial, but the Espionage Act prevents that from happening. There's no information given. It's the same principle under which they threw Chelsea Manning in jail for 35 years. You don't really get to say anything.
Canada and America were neighbors, but it seems like in America right now, the notion of patriotism is
insane.
It's so complicated. You've got a football player who's saying, no, I'm not going to stand.
Well, that's a good thing. Yeah, it's complicated because we're the only country in the world, by the way, that worships the military to the degree that we do. I don't know. You have to be in America to see all the commercials on TV to understand every football game, every baseball game. So, I mean, it's blind. And we've been in how many wars now? And we're ineffective, and so much waste is going on. Not only foreigners, those people being killed in these wars, but our people.
Yeah.
And the veterans many of them are injured with brain injuries. It's horrible. No one really talks about it. That's another thing about America. We're very hypocritical about wars, about climate control.
You talk about
and
it.
about the surveillance state. I mean, Mr. Snowden has never been discussed by these candidates in their debates. They talk about personalities and all kinds of bluster and doing this and doing that. But, let's get real. What's going on in the world now? This movie, time has come. It has to be made.
You talk about it all the time.
Not all the time. I do have a family life.
Yeah, but you have covered it in so many movies. What is it about that notion of patriotism that really turns you on?
I don't want to get into a big discussion about it because you only have limited time, but,
Let's pretend we have the day.
I think it's... we have not. You have to remember our history. We have never been through a war since the Civil War where we really got... so many people were slaughtered, almost 1 million or 500,000. We don't know what World War I was like the Europeans did. We don't know what World War II was because, frankly, we came in late to the war. We took a lot of casualties, about 400,000 men. That's a lot. But it was a world war, and meanwhile, for example, the Russians took about 10 million military casualties. And what I'm saying is that the Russians fought most of the European war. And frankly, they contributed to the Japanese war very importantly at the end. But we fought well, but the concept that we became a military garrison state after World War II, we became basically a national security state. And that was, I don't think we ever voted on it. It was just fear. Fear was put in the air, and we kept building this state up. And then the Russians went away in 1991, really, with the end of the Soviet Union, and then we kept going. We never closed down. We never cut the budgets, and the garrison was built up into 800 bases around the world? We don't even know. Some of them are secret bases. We are in every country except those people who won't let us in, and we're working hard on regime change there.
To get in there.
We're very... We took over the world, or we think we did, and we think we have the right to tell people in other countries how to behave, what to do.
For listeners that may not know all that at this point, when they see Snowden, it opens your eyes to all that. I certainly went home after seeing the movie, which I thoroughly enjoyed, and I went home kind of looking at my computer thinking, well, I'll close this now because I don't want my camera open, and I'm scared to plug my phone in. Did it have an impact on you personally?
That's a very good point you raised. I just want to close out something because I started my discussion with saying we have never suffered war, really, at home. So in a sense, this madness, we're the only country in the world that does this. The other people who've been through wars know the price. So there's much more mutedness about it. There's in France, above all, where my mom came from, I mean, statues everywhere to World War I. They lost a whole generation. So you don't go about war lightly. And unfortunately, I think since none of our leaders have experienced it, Mr. Bush among them and Mr. Obama, they go about military aggressiveness abroad too lightly, without debate. And it's not really, the protests are sequestered, I just want to say that if you had suffered war, you would have a different attitude towards it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Having been in Vietnam, I can say any veteran who knows it would think 3-4 times before he would fire a weapon again.
Yeah, my dad was in World War II, as a lot of listeners would have that experience with their parents. And yeah, they see it completely differently.
To the surveillance question, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, because this is almost like the new frontier of war. It's the new thing that...
Well, Snowden points not only to mass surveillance, which is illegal, but it also points to drone war and, most importantly, to cyber warfare. If you looked at the Japanese sequence when he's in Japan, what is he doing? He's planning malware.
Yeah.
And in Hawaii, he's working against the Chinese he's countering the cyber hackers from China. But what's implicit in all this is that the United States started cyber warfare. We bombed Iraq. We bombed Iran in 2007. We put the Stuxnet virus into their nuclear facilities with the help of Israel, and that kicked off a whole cycle because we could not. We thought we could, but we couldn't control the virus. The virus went on to other countries, was discovered, and other people realized in the world that, hey, the United States is now resorting to this barbaric form of warfare, where you don't know who started it, where you always, it comes through proxies. This is very dangerous. It's coming back to haunt us, as you can see in all the news.
Do you ever feel scared about the
Yes,
fact
I
that you're
do. I feel
revealing
very
these?
scared. This is, actually cyber warfare is, people don't realize it yet, but it was the beginning of a new age where dropping bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki would be the equivalent in that age.
And you've been telling us these stories for a long time before we came
Untold
to
History of the
air.
United States, my documentary. It showed in Canada. You should buy it.
Yeah, I will go out and do that. But I've been watching since Midnight Express.
Midnight Express. You were too young.
I was too young, but it was an amazing film. It told some great stories. I think I was just talking to you about The Doors and how wonderfully you portrayed Indigenous people in that, which I was nervous about heading into. Through your trilogy of the Vietnam War, all the presidential movies, at this point now, this groundbreaking film, Snowden, what story or type of story have you not done yet that you still want to tell?
Snowden was a big effort, 2.5 years, and I'm kind of doing this tour as it opens and around the world, and I hope it has some impact. I've written some other stuff, but I really don't like to discuss what I'm thinking about, which before I do it, because frankly, you get copied or ripped off and this and that.
So you can't share the secrets.
Well, there's so much media now, that
So true.
It'll show up on TV. I'd rather work on it quietly. This was done quietly, but we didn't get that much attention, and we did it out of the country because we got turned down by every major studio in America, and it was made by Open Road, stepped up, a small distributor. They did Spotlight last year, and it was basically financed by Europe, by France and Germany, essentially.
Pushing the bounds, always.
Yeah, it's hard, man. It's hard.
But it's important work, and it's so wonderful that you continue to do it.
Thanks, Candy. Are you going to join me?
I would love to join
Be
you.
in my next movie?
And I would love to be
I love
in the
those
next
tattoos.
movie.
They're great.
Thank you so much. I wish you could share the secret, but maybe I'll find out eventually what that untold story is going to be. Maybe it'll be a story of First Nations people here in Canada. Who knows?
Well, Canada used to be an area where people could go and run away from the Vietnam War. That you
True
accepted.
enough.
Now you've become so locked into the American system that you seems to have no independence to me. Hopefully, this young Trudeau could go back to some of his father's policies.
It's a time of hope.
So anyway, are you going to? I forgot what I was going to say, but anyway, I'm looking at your tattoos here, and they're very very amazing.
Thank you so much. Beautiful film. Thank you for making it, and thank you for taking the time. I know how busy you are to come and chat.
Thanks for having me.